There are hardships in society that must be faced every day. The awareness of these problems makes up a person's social consciousness. Associate Professor of Public Administration, Jenson, is here to talk about the importance of this awareness when starting a business. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So you developed this new course about social entrepreneurship. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, it's a graduate certificate, and it's comprised of 4 courses, and the courses all relate to social entrepreneurship or social enterprise. And so the idea was to create an opportunity for students after they graduate with a bachelor's degree to pursue this subfield of nonprofit management and entrepreneurship called social entrepreneurship, which is recognizing a problem in the world and then using entrepreneurial principles to resolve the problem. And so it's 4 courses, and it's newly available this semester for post-bac students.
How has your background kind of helped you develop this course?
Well, my background was in nonprofit management. I was the director of a treatment facility for adolescents, and then I went back for graduate education and got my PhD in public administration. Public administration's very related to nonprofit management, and when I got my first job here at UND, I developed a course in nonprofit management. And then I had been teaching that for a while, and a student came in my office one day and gave me a book and said, "You have to read this." And that book was by Bornstein, How to Change the World. And so I read that, and I was inspired, and I would invite a lot of anybody else to read that book as well. And one thing led to another, and I integrated that into my nonprofit management course, and then I began to develop the certificate in social entrepreneurship.
Okay, so that's kind of how you decided to create this course. What do you hope to accomplish through it?
Well, my goal is to be entrepreneurial myself and to educate students so that they can go out in the world and resolve social problems. And so I see it as universities are supposed to be in the business of creating social capital, and we do that all the time. We send students out and they contribute to the world. But I don't know that we do enough of it, in that we don't really equip students necessarily with the specific skills that would allow them to start a business or contribute to an existing nonprofit in a way that's entrepreneurial. And so I really see it as making the world a better place.
So you've mentioned, students kind of being able to go out in the real world and make a difference. What are some specific examples of how students can, gain from going out in the real world?
Well, as I see it, they could start a social enterprise, and a social enterprise is a business with a social mission. And so it's not unlike any other business, except most businesses in the private sector will have a profit motive, whereas a social enterprise will have a profit motive, but the profit goes toward resolving a social problem. And so Tom Shoes is an example where every pair of shoes they sell, they donate a pair of shoes. It's to needy people in other countries. So it's the one-for-one pledge that Tom Shoes has, and that's a wonderful example of a social enterprise, and the founder of it was a social entrepreneur.
Okay, so just kind of, taking other people into consideration in the world. Through this course, there's a topic of social consciousness. Why is this important?
Well, again, I think as a university, we have to be in the business of creating socially responsible citizens. And so we serve the state of North Dakota, and I'm not saying that the students we graduate aren't socially conscious, but I think we can do more to contribute to that. And then once they graduate, no matter what field they're in, if they've had been exposed to social enterprise and social entrepreneurship, then I think even if they move into the private sector, that social mission idea will always be in the back of their head. And if they have the opportunity to create a social enterprise or to establish a social mission in an existing organization, that makes the world a better place. And then the nonprofit sector as well, that if students choose to work in the nonprofit sector, well, all of those organizations already have a social mission, and so they would be instituting entrepreneurial principles into nonprofit organizations, which is also good.
Is this approach to social consciousness different now than in the past?
I don't necessarily think so. I think the United States has a very rich history of nonprofits, and that's a good thing. But at times, the nonprofit sector, the third sector, hasn't really been as entrepreneurial as possible. That is, they depend on charity rather than finding alternative mechanisms to raise revenue, such as selling a product. And so that's sort of the bridge from the traditional nonprofit sector to the entrepreneurial nonprofits, and then to the social enterprises, which aren't nonprofits, but they're private businesses.
Before we go really quickly, how can these organizations help to foster social change?
Well, by raising revenue that keeps the organization going to support their social mission. And so all of these organizations will have a social mission. That's what makes them different from a traditional business, which they don't have a social mission. And it might be that that's the entire mission of the organization, or it might be part profit motive and part social mission. And again, the upside is that the world's becoming a better place if more people think like this.
All right, thanks so much for joining us and talking about this course you have developed.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.